Reimagining the trigger is a little bit what we talked about before in terms of the 10-minute rule. It's reimagining that conversation with yourself. It's noting the sensation. So in the back of my book, there's a distraction tracker because what psychologists tell us that by simply noting that sensation, if you can identify the preceding emotion before you become distracted. So I checked email because I was anxious about what's coming into my workplace. I'm stressed because of X, Y, Z, whatever it might be. If you can just write it down, okay? It turns out that's a step to give us greater agency and control over those emotions. So there's a bunch of techniques that I describe in the book around how we can reimagine the trigger through some of these methods.
What are some common triggers that people listening might experience? A lot of people know they're spending too much time on, say, social media, but they don't know why all the time. And that's kind of natural, right? Like these days, it's so easy to grab that device, and it's not always the device. It could be shopping or drinking or sex or whatever it is to distract you. But sometimes we don't equate it with what we're feeling. What are some of those common feelings?
Stress, anxiety, uncertainty, fatigue, loneliness. I mean, the list goes on. And of course, we have products that cater to each one of these things, right? So I mean, this is back to my first book, Hooked. I mean, this is how products build these habits in our lives, is that they cater to these individual triggers. And we want them to, right? By and large, we want to associate a product's use with relieving some of our troubles, right? So that when we need something, we grab our app and we order it on Amazon, or when we want entertainment, when we want to relieve boredom, there's nothing wrong with watching a game on TV or watching Netflix. It's when we do it on someone else's schedule as opposed to our schedule, that's the problem. Right. And that's the second step. So until now, we've just been talking about how to master the internal triggers, which is the first and most important step. But remember, we talked about traction and distraction?
Yeah.
So the next step is about making time for traction. And this is incredibly important. This step is really about the fact that if you don't plan your day, something or someone is going to plan it for you. That if you think about how much time we spend protecting our stuff, right? We buy alarm systems for our cars, we have security systems for our homes, we put our money in vaults to protect our things. But when it comes to our time, something that everyone has the same amount of, right? Whether you're Bill Gates or anyone, you have the same amount of 24 hours every single day. Sure, come on over, take as much of it as you want. Because if we don't plan our time, somebody's going to plan it for us. Whether it's your boss, your kids, your spouse, the news, whatever's going on Twitter, we have to start planning our day, because you cannot call something a distraction unless you know what it distracted you from.